All right, we begin, of course, in the land of the black stars. Lots of inflation data to digest. We had US inflation, CPI coming in yesterday, UK inflation, decelerations across the board. We get Nigeria later on today, hopefully. So here is Ghana decelerating 20.9% year on year for July. The forecast was 21.5. June, 22.8. Ghana has been on this is like 4 decelerations now in a row, year on year rather, for the last 4 months. So we're going to get into the Ghanaian economy, talk about inflation, talk about the CD, also the US dollar reserves, gross reserves for Ghana as well. Let's head on over to Accra. Winston Tackie is joining us. He's a business analyst, business journalist. Winston, good morning to you. Thank you so much for joining us from the capital of Accra. I wanted to first get into how Ghana has done this. I mean, we have a chart. We're going to put it up. 50+% this time last year, almost cutting inflation in half. What were the triggers, Winston?
You know, the interesting, thank you, Roto. It's really a pleasure to join you this morning on Arise, and it's really been a pleasure already witnessing the significant drop in inflation in Ghana. First of all, I want some of our viewers to understand that inflation is when the price of goods and services go up over a certain time within the period. This means that the money probably that you have today may buy less in the future. For example, if you could buy a loaf of bread for 5 cedis today, and tomorrow when the price is 6 cedi, that is inflation. The good news for Ghana is that Ghana's inflation has decreased from 22.8% to 20.9% for July this year. And that was reported yesterday by the Ghana Statistical Service. We also saw food inflation, which went down to 21.5% from 24.0% in June 2024. And the interesting aspect has to do with our non-food inflation, which also fell to 20.5%. This was triggered by the inflation on imported items, which also dropped to 15.6% from 17.5%. So the significant aspect of we seeing inflation slow down was due to the central bank's policy that has seen the cedi being stabilized for quite some time now. Apart from the cedi depreciation, we have also seen some domestic strategies being adopted by the central government, such as the gold for oil policy, targeted to ensuring that our reserves are strong enough to withstand any shock that may come against the cedi. And we've also seen some inflows from the World Bank and IMF, giving us some leverage in terms of trade. Thereby, this slowdown has been the 28th significant slowdown in 28 months, and that is something that we've seen in a long time.
All right, so, you know, I don't want to get into competition and comparisons here from jollof rice to the Super Eagles versus the Black Stars, but on the food side, I would of course argue that Nigerian jollof rice is better than Ghanaian. You would of course argue on the other side. On the inflation side, there's no argument that we just put up that chart now that Ghana is doing way better than Nigeria, and you're only 45 minutes away from me. This is what food. Look at food inflation. I mean, you're at 55 as you just talked about. So what can we learn? What do we need to do? Because our government has just put in place import duties. Well, rather, they're waiving import duties on food coming in from other countries, possibly maybe from Ghana as well, and other places, to try to reduce the prices of food. But looking at that chart, with the impressive way in which you've reduced inflation in Ghana, what can we learn? What do we need to do to get so that we're both going down at the same time on that chart?
So what the Central Bank of Nigeria has decided to do, the policy of removing certain taxes on imported goods, is a very significant strategy to ensure inflation comes down. Now, Nigeria can learn from Ghana's approach as well to managing inflation by focusing on stabilizing the currency and implementing effective monetary policies. Ghana's effort to control food inflation through strategic interventions in the agricultural sector and import management have been beneficial. We've tried as much as possible to adopt the domestic strategies, such as the Planting for Food and Job program, which government adopted, and we've seen significant surge in downward trend in food prices in most parts of the country, especially in the southern part of the country. But unfortunately, in the northern part, we've seen inflation rising high, especially in the upper east and upper west regions, where for the past 3 months, there's been significant droughts in those regions. There's rainfall patterns has been quite hectic, but Nigeria could adopt similar strategies as well. That is focusing on dealing with the import side of the inflation basket and also ensuring that the currency naira has enough reserves and also ensure that activities of the black market activities are controlled. Else, although the price of food commodities will be going up on the domestic market, if the imported side is not handled, it will seem as if government is not doing enough. So it is possible to balance the strategies from both angles to ensure that the inflation will be tamed, to ensure that investor monies or investments are also preserved, the value of the currency is preserved, or else both of us, the worker who is working hard and saving enough, and also those who are not even working will be at the same level.
Hey, it's good advice. You have the numbers to prove it. Jay-Z said that men lie, women lie, but numbers don't. And so your inflation numbers prove it. So we will take all the advice that you can give. You mentioned the CD, you mentioned the US dollar. Gross US dollar reserves for Ghana, 5.3 billion last year, almost 7 billion as of June, year on year. What's your expectation for future US dollar inflows into Ghana's coffers?
As of now, Ghana's access to the international market has been cut short due to our risks being assessed by the Fitch and Standard & Poor's. It appears that we are not good nation to do business on the Eurobond market. Therefore, it's become very difficult for us to have access to any foreign capital, apart from our engagement that we are currently under the International Monetary Fund Program, the IMF, where we received tranches of monies so far. Last month, and the finance minister was discussing with the bilateral creditors to ensure that the next tranche was released, and successfully that was done. That is what has given the cedi some boost in the last 3 weeks. And also, with the inflows from the World Bank, most of these reserves and the future inflows are expected to remain strong, driven by continued foreign investment as well. We also, our remittances has given us a very good outlook, because we've seen remittance increasing for the past, from January to now. It has increased astronomically to over 45%. And export revenues is something that government has also targeted. We've seen for now, there are a lot of taxes on imported products from into the country, and this is expected to give the government the enhanced revenue outlook going into the rest of the year, particularly from cocoa and gold reserves. So we are also looking at those angles to see that we can make money from there. But for the cocoa, the key challenge has to do with us meeting the target and also ensuring that we can make due the current price hike on cocoa on the international market, although domestically we have not been able to meet domestic production.
Okay, well, I'm glad you preempted my next question then, because cocoa prices have been on an absolute roller coaster in 2024. From February, I think it was El Nino weather and so on and so forth. So how do you see the price movement on cocoa impacting Ghanaian farmers then?
And that is a very good one that you started from there. Now, the cocoa prices have experienced volatility due to global supply chain disruption and changing demand pattern. The demand pattern has changed this year compared to many other years. And the key suppliers, Cote d'Ivoire and Ghana. Unfortunately, Cote d'Ivoire are leading the pace, and they've put in structures where now they look to be a very enticing market on the international market. Unfortunately, Ghana, we've tried as much as possible to be supplying the premium quality on international market, although it appears that there's been a bit of challenge in terms of debt management with the central agency, Ghana Cocoa Board, who are championing the case of cocoa. It appeared the issue of galamsey prevalence has become a key challenge in us meeting our targets. We had a target for this year over 1 million tons of cocoa, but it appears even the first 6 months of the year, our 350,000 metric tons that we are projected to hit, we cannot even meet those targets. And therefore, our future reserves that pricing that we've done, it appears we may not be able to get the benefit of the recent hike in the international market. That being said, the government and industry stakeholders are working to support farmers through initiatives aimed at improving productivity and sustainability, which is a key issue now, considering the prevalent cases of galamsey operations, where currently most farmers are giving out their land, their farms to galamsey operations, and that is crippling certain key regions who are main suppliers of cocoa beans to the cocoa board to be sold to an international market. Another issue that has popped up through constant conversation with the cocoa board is the most buyers are now buying directly at the borders of most of our countries, and this is driving most farmers to not sell to the government, but rather smuggle indirectly. But there's been another law that has been a regulation from the cocoa board that if you are caught up, the law will deal with you. You'll be sentenced to imprisonment, possibly 10 years, if you are caught smuggling any bean of cocoa, possibly if you are captured. And that is something that the central government is trying as much as possible to control or mitigate the case of smuggling.
Thank you so much. Excellent deep dive there on cocoa. And you got to do something about the smuggling. So it's important to put serious penalties and enforce them. Okay, so that's agriculture. What other sectors of Ghana's economy are on your radar for growth, I guess, for the rest of this year?
The interesting aspect is that the last GDP growth of 4.3% that we experienced in the first quarter of 2024, it has been driven key by the industry sector, and this was because we saw the oil sector seeing a bit of boost. We saw the manufacturing sector experiencing boost. Nonetheless, now the key aspect that we will be seeing or expecting much growth is the agricultural, also the technology and digital services. These sectors have been projected to experience astronomical boost. We've seen Momo services hitting trillions of Ghana cedis in the economy in the just first 3 months of the year. We are also expected to see the increased investment in the renewable energy sector, which is now gaining momentum. There are laws being worked on and domestically to ensure the sector is well regulated so that individuals and industries are having the needed capital to invest. Ghana has constantly been championing the case of the Paris Agreement to ensure that the projected promise to African countries of $1 billion annually to the economy to ensure the climate mitigation activities are championed has not been done so far. So we are hoping that both government, not just in Ghana alone, but across Africa, Nigeria, to ensure that the needed renewable investments are done to ensure we keep our environment clean, to ensure the activation of electric vehicles, which has become a key conversation across the continent, will be driven, as well as taking advantage of the African continental free trade area.
Fantastic. Winston, we only got less than a minute to go, so about 40 seconds. You got elections this December. It's not just the U.S. elections everybody's looking to in November. Ghana has elections in December. Depending on who wins, what's the outlook for 2025?
That is a serious projection, though. But let me hit it from the angle. We have been observing the trend in Nigeria, and it appears the constant protest has also been not just in Nigeria. We've seen that in Kenya and across the world. The one thing that has happened in recent time is the labor unions strikes, which is most of the time, this is the time that we see labor unions striking to ensure their condition of service are improved, because they see that the political divide, it gives the political parties some kind of disfavor before the populace. Nonetheless, Ghana is known for its peaceful election, and the upcoming December elections are expected to follow the same tradition. The Electoral Commission and the security agencies so far, according to update from the Commission, are well prepared to ensure the smooth election processes, unlike what happened in 2016 when there were a bit of violence in some hotspots across the country, and also what happened in 2020 as well. And then these are some things that we are trying as much as possible not to repeat themselves. However, we've observed some situations in most parts of the continent, and also the key case is to prevent the constant protests that erupt into destruction of properties and lives. It's something that the government and the security agencies are trying as much as possible to mitigate. So the key conversation is in terms of policy structure. We hear the NDC being led by John Dramani Mahama and the NPP being led by Dr. Mahmoud Bamia, both of them discussing policies, which the key focus has been who has the right policy to alleviate the people out of poverty, or who has the right policy to elevate, to ensure economic improvement going into 2025. Nonetheless, even if the election happens, the economic outlook for 2025 is not quite promising, considering the fact that we've postponed our debt repayment, interest on payment, and most of our agreements that we had in 2023, 2024, the 2025, we have to have enough revenue strategies to ensure we're able to finance our capital project, to finance most of our policy. And nonetheless, irrespective of which government is in power in 2025, it appears that government will surely have a headwind to handle going forward.
Hey, we will have you to take us through it all as we approach the December elections. Debt, poverty alleviation, inflation, US dollar reserves, the CD, so much on the line ahead of some big elections in Ghana in December. Winston Tackie, thank you so much. Business analyst, business journalist, thank you for joining us from Accra. We appreciate it. And Ghana is winning. They're losing the jollof battle, but they're winning the inflation battle.